I have another tree to add to the garden. This is a desert gold peach, as you can see here. Truthfully, don't be surprised if I add trees. Be surprised the moment I stop adding trees. I currently have one peach tree, which is my Florida Prince peach, and that one is a self-pollinating peach tree. However, even when fruit trees are listed as self-pollinating, you can get better fruit set if you cross-pollinate them with a compatible variety. So this desert gold is a perfect partner for my Florida Prince peach, and this is what it looks like. Look at this beauty. I was actually searching for this exact variety online. They were all sold out and a bit more expensive. This one my husband picked up at Home Depot, and I was FaceTiming him, asking him, check the graft. How does the graft look? Does it look healthy? And he was like, cutie, I don't know what exactly you want me to search for. I don't know what that means. So it's interesting because you can see here parafilm as well, which is what I like to use with my trees. It's awesome for grafting because it protects this until it's able to heal. But as you can see here, it starts breaking down on its own after some time. It's a really nice tree, and this is where I'm gonna place it. Da-da-da-da. Right over here. Currently I have some peas climbing up, a couple of tomatoes, but I feel like I wasn't utilizing these trellises as much as I could have. Although the peas are doing fine, I really don't like the look of it. It looks a bit messy. I want it to be a lot more formal and ornamental, so I'm actually going to espalier this tree against this wall to help mirror the Dorset golden apple tree that I have right here. So I moved the pots around yesterday. I feel like I move them every 3 business days. And I'm going to start espaliering this one across. So they're gonna get to a pretty good size, but I feel like once they bloom, it's gonna be such a beautiful show. I'm excited. It's been so warm. You can see this one's starting to break bud, which means that I need to spray them with some dormant spray ASAP because I thought they weren't gonna wake up for another few weeks, but apparently that doesn't seem to be the case. The rest of these pots I'm gonna wind up filling up with annuals or even some perennials that are a little bit shorter, just so that these trees can be the main focus. But for now, we're gonna focus on filling this pot and planting my desert gold peach. Right now it has a whole lot of cardboard, which I'm gonna remove, and then I already have some soil ready to go. Look at this. This is what it's like every single day. Your puzzle pieces, silly goosh goosh. Before I fill up my pot, I'm actually gonna add a bit more compost to the soil. Just to make it extra rich for my desert fruit tree.
Mommy, what the peachy toy?
It's a Florida Prince and a desert gold. Ooh.
I go have you growing desert gold. You growing it desert gold peach.
Yeah. Are you excited?
Oh my!
Whenever I'm planting anything, the first thing I do is look up what type of soil it thrives in. So I start Googling and researching what type of soil do peach trees like. Once I figure out what type of soil that plant wants, I try and recreate that. Because I'm putting these trees in pots, I have the ability to baby them and give them exactly what they want. If I were planting this peach tree in ground, I wouldn't do this. Also keep in mind that it's gonna be nearly impossible to replicate the exact optimal conditions that these trees like, but I try to get as close as possible. I'm happy with the structure of my soil, so next I'm gonna move it over to that side of the yard. So I'm gonna start clearing away this cardboard. And then before I fill up the entire pot, I'm actually gonna place a thin layer of paper towel at the bottom, just like that. I'm not gonna worry about the holes on the sides. I could put a few more pieces, but the bottom one is the one I'm worried about the most because it's a bit bigger. And I'm gonna start filling. I think the first scoops are the hardest just because I'm not trying to move that paper towel around too much. But afterwards, it's a little easier. Here's my little tree. Then I'm gonna take away the sticker. And look at this little beauty. It's so pretty. Next come these tie tapes. And then we remove the stake. Okay, there we go. In this case, because this is a potted plant and not a bare root, I'm gonna place this pot in here. and I'm going to take a look at how high it is and how deep I want to bury it. Keep in mind that this soil is still going to settle. So at this point, it would be way too high. I'd have about this much sticking out of the ground, which means that I need to make more room. So this is how tall the tree's planted, and it looks fine and healthy right now. But when I planted, I try to leave a little bit of the root flare exposed. So what I'm talking about is if I pull this back, you keep seeing trunk and more trunk. About a thumb's width down, you can start to see these feeder roots. So I'm looking for the point where I start to see the roots flaring out, which is around right here. The reason I look for that is because if I were to bury a little too high, I feel like that's too deep. With fruit trees, I always try to bury them a little bit higher. So actually, when I plant this, what is this? Hold up. What is this? Y'all, seriously? Okay. So let me take out this tree and we'll examine it a bit more before we put it in the pot. I start by loosening up the sides. And then I'm able to pull it out. Ooh, what is this? I mean, it looks like the roots are able to get through. I've never seen that before in any other fruit tree that I've ever planted. Look at this. It's whatever starter pot it was in, it looks like. Okay, so I'm gonna let that be. Right here, I am going to remove a little bit of this from the top. I want to see that root flare coming out. Right now I'm seeing a lot of feeder roots. Here I can start to see the root flare right here, which is not these feeder roots, but the roots that are a bit bigger. I don't like them being buried way too deep. And these little guys, instead of growing out, were growing straight up to get oxygen to pull in the nutrients. So I'm gonna correct this when I plant it. These roots, deep in here, they feel a little bit more mushy. And I think this might have been some sort of fabric pot. And yes, it might break down over time, but I want these roots to be able to spread out as much as possible. So what I'm gonna do is sprinkle some worm castings right here, mix it in a bit. This poor tree's been through so much, so I'm gonna sprinkle a bit more. And then I'm gonna take some mycorrhizae because I've disturbed these roots enough and I wanna make sure that they can recover and recover well. And I'm gonna place this poor tree on top like this. I'm gonna try and spread these roots out. Before I finish backfilling, I'm gonna spread some worm castings and just to be on the safe side, a bit more mycorrhizae. Keep in mind, I want the tree to start growing up this way up against the trellis. By positioning it now, it'll be a lot easier to train. That way I don't have to pull it back quite as hard and there's not too much tension on it, which will just make my work a lot easier. For these feeder roots, what I'm gonna do is try and straighten them out a bit to lay them flat. And then I'm gonna cover up with a bit of soil and then pat it down. They've gotten used to growing straight up, so it might be a bit more difficult to get them to stay down. But after I'm done filling with soil, I'm also gonna add a light layer of mulch. The center of the trellis is actually right here, so I'm gonna move the pots a bit to make it align with the center. It's right over here. Right there. You guys know the drill. I've been using my pruners a lot, so first I'm going to sharpen them. Next, I'm going to disinfect them. And because I know I want to exfoliate this tree, I like the way this branch is starting to grow right here, so I'm probably going to start training this one down. But I want to encourage a few more of these buds to start branching out. So I'm hoping that if I prune it back a bit from the top, it'll redirect some of its energy down, and that way it starts putting out more branches, and one of these other buds will continue moving up. So I'm cutting it right there, and that looks pretty good. Next, I'm going to take a nice long piece of tie tape, and because I have this up against the cinder block wall, what I've learned over the last few weeks after skinning almost every single one of my knuckles, it's easier if you wrap your tape around your structure first, and then I give it a twist and then tie my tree. And now the tree is right up against the trellis, and then this one I'm actually going to start to train down a bit. I'm also going to go through, and any branches that have died back or are facing out towards the cinder block wall, I'm going to cut off. That way I only leave the branches that are facing out. Last but not least, we're going to water this little guy in. The most important thing to remember when watering pots is to let the water drain through. It's been a few minutes. This tree looks a lot better and I see water running out the bottom. So it's good to go. The last thing I need to do is make a tag for this little desert gold peach and name it.